I was doing my study on civic engagement using federal WorkStudy. We have a fairly active group, but there is getting some feedback. We have a lot of turnover, so students aren't staying the full term. They're getting higher paid positions elsewhere, and getting some feedback that they're a little lost as to what they should be doing with WorkStudy and how that fits in with them. So I'll get into more detail with that and how we've kind of been trying to modify our program to make it more of a high impact engagement activity. I'm at Northampton Community College. We're in Pennsylvania. We're spread across 3 campuses, Monroe County, Northampton County. They're about 30 miles apart, and then an additional campus in downtown Bethlehem. That's about 5 miles from the main campus. So we try to engage students across all 3 campuses. Just some statistics so you can see if we line up with what your institution is. 63% of our students are first gen students, so we're kind of typical to a community college this way. Only 50% of our students are traditional age. Almost 80% of our students already need to work jobs. 30% of them are almost full-time hours. Not a lot of community colleges have like established centers, so I'm pretty fortunate that this is a paid position for me to engage with this work. We have a physical space on campus, so how do we best utilize that for a meeting center? We have dorms, which gives us a captive audience for community college, although our population is relatively small. And we also have international students, which provides like good educational experiences both ways. Let's see, I feel like I skipped something. I'm out of order on my slides. So why WorkStudy? I think we're all familiar with the mandate that colleges now, universities now have to distribute voter registration forms to all of its students. I'm just kind of including that in here for framework, and that feeds into the WorkStudy positions that 7% of WorkStudy positions on campus should go towards community service, and civic engagement actually counts as community service. So this can apply to teaching civics, increasing civic voter participation, and raising awareness of government functions, so that helping not just to register students to vote, but also doing programming and outreach can count for students as well. So plan of action. First thing you need to do is meet with the financial aid and carve out WorkStudy positions for your office. Just make sure that they're on board. It runs through the financial aid position. Students apply for FAFSA, and that's how they determine if they're qualified. Does everybody want this background on WorkStudy students? Does anyone not want the background on WorkStudy students, or are you all familiar with WorkStudy? Because I'm not getting any feedback, so I should just keep going. Okay, so how students apply for WorkStudy? It's just another grant program. They're eligible through their FAFSA forms. And those have to be in like the summer before. So that can be challenging for community college students to know that they have to have those forms in. I know some of our students are hesitant to do that. So getting the word out that that's a good way for them to get on campus jobs as well. And working with faculty to have not only apply for the WorkStudy position, but also make sure that your FAFSA forms are filled out. And that's where the financial aid, that's why it's run through the financial aid office. And then we also have to coordinate with that just advertise the positions. And I guess we're allocated 10 positions by the college, but there's no way I could manage 10 WorkStudy students. So they're fairly easy to get. It's just a conversation. So what I'm changing is typically on campus WorkStudy positions tend to be a lot of filling seats and really low wages. And for our students, incentive wise, there's not a lot of incentive to do that. one, it's not really helping build resume skills or helping them towards a career post graduation. And two, it's not providing a living wage for our students. So when developing our salaries, you have a lot of flexibility in how much you, sometimes institutions themselves will set a bar or an amount for work study positions. But on my campus, I'm fortunate that we can actually set whatever wage or rate we want to. We just have to make sure that the total hours don't exceed the allocation from financial aid. On our campus, it's typically $1,500 a semester. And so then I just said 10 hours a week seems like a reasonable number of hours and divided that by the 1,500 and I got to $11.50 an hour. That's still pretty low, but we try to supplement our positions with democracy fellowships from the different partner organizations that we have or writing grants. I know with grants and the fellowship positions, we can overlap. So the same hours for the democracy fellowships that we apply for also count as the work study hours. And that gets our wages up to help supplement because we don't have the budget in our office to bump the wages up, but we can use grant money to bunch it up to that $15 an hour, which still isn't great, but it does make it less of a stretch for our students, and decreasing the hours helps as well. So develop your style, develop your work study description. Being very specific, I find helps instead of vague and ambiguous, because that gives the student, a lot of our students aren't familiar with work study or even what it's like to work in an office. So I think that helps with nerves and things like that. So then you post the positions, then you hire, and then you implement your program, all done. Very easy. We are restructuring one low engagement. It's hard to get students to apply for positions at $8 an hour. So we're trying to restructure our wages. We also didn't have a lot of outside benefit beyond the position. So it's not on high impact, high engagement opportunity if they're occasionally helping with flyers or sending out an email, but trying to make it more project oriented. There's also a campus aversion to partisan politics. So making sure it actually, the first response I get is, oh, I'm not into politics, but if we emphasize the nonpartisan or we emphasize the engagement opportunities, the speakers, well, are you interested in the speaker or this topic? Well, yes. And so then it's asking the student what they're passionate about and what they would want to share with other people and using that as a gateway to pull them in to the voting process. Some ideas on low engagement from speaking to our past student work studies, unrealistic expectations of volunteerism on campus. So trying to increase the number of paid positions to allow students to be involved with these types of programs. Student program attendance is fairly low. It's hard for us, but if we have students driving, their peer-to-peer communications, taking a more integrated engagement process. So having the student-driven programming, if it's a thing that they're passionate about, and then recruiting students from their classes, they'll be connected to other students who are passionate about that as well, to try to decrease the stress of who's going to attend these events. Having more equal wages is a DEI and accessibility issue for our students. And then positions and turnovers. We've had several students who have to leave midterm or mid-semester to go get positions that are higher paying, and decreasing the hours, increasing wages, and combining with partner fellowships. We're hoping that will help with the turnover. We also want to make this an experience for students and not just a job, to kind of help differentiate it from other experiences, other jobs that they could get off campus. I starts with the interview. A lot of our students haven't interviewed before. So one of my resources is actually an interview worksheet and like how to ask leading questions. So make sure that you're not just asking, tell us about yourself, but like a really good way to answer that is to make sure when you're telling us about yourself, it include things about your life or your interests that apply specifically to this job. So that way, even every experience with the work study should be a learning experience for students. So even if they don't take the position or you don't want to hire them, they're at least learning the interview process. And that continues on throughout the course of interactions with our office, transitioning to a project-based format for our students. So no longer being office support or support for existing programming, but setting it up as following a service learning model. So students will do research on what they are interested in, find and identify a need in the community, and then develop some sort of engagement opportunity, whether that be a volunteer experience or bringing a speaker to campus or some type of community event, or maybe they're really interested in voter registration tables and they want to host those. So having having them work on project-based initiatives to try to improve engagement with the office. Service learning, does anyone want to learn about what service learning is, or are we good? Or this is my quick reminder, but thumbs up or thumbs down if we want to go into this in more detail. No answers either way. There's an emoji, you don't even have to do too much. Just
We
click
got
it.
1 thumbs up.
Okay, so move forward.
Also, 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So up to you.
I can do it in 2 minutes. So service learning is just the combination of academic study, reflection, practical experience, and community involvement. So part of what I'm doing right now is to kind of come up with an outline to make sure that these components are included in the job expectations for the students and having them for at the beginning of the semester. So when I'm aligning the work for the students to do, I want to make sure it falls into these categories. Is it applicable to their career goals? Is it authentic? It doesn't meet a real community need on campus. Is it intentional, thoughtful? That goes into like having them do their research. And those applicable and connects with curriculum makes it a more real, hands-on, realistic, and meaningful experience for the students if they can tie it back into the resume and career experience, like I think Megan was saying. So the resources that I'm working on creating is the WorkStudy job posting, a WorkStudy flyer. I have the federal laws and regulations to help promote why your office should get WorkStudy positions. In order to up the wages, the only thing that you have to have on record is a sample regional job posting that matches that wage to justify the higher rates. And those are easy to find, especially for like voter engagement. There's always nonprofits looking for people to door knock, and national organizations, and then the sample of interview questions with the leading to make sure that's an educational process as well. Do you guys have any work study students? Do you have feedback from them that I should incorporate into what I'm doing? That you have found to be successful or not successful? What are your ideal, like question 1, what are your students' ideal number of hours?